Good morning, friends. Let's welcome to today's ASTRA, that is the current affairs exclusively for this prelims 2023. So today it is 27th of December. So there are something about smuggling of tortoise. There is something about National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Along with this, we have some other aspects which are very important for prelims. So without wasting time, let's see what is important for prelims from today's Hindu newspaper. So today it is the 27th of December. So this is the Hindu. Let's see what are the things that we have in this Hindu for today's current affairs. The first one is High Court transfers probe of BRS MLA's poaching attempt to CBI. So the question is about CBI for prelims, whether CBI is a constitutional body, from where it derives its powers. CBI is a non-constitutional body, so only two things are important from here. CBI, which is a non-constitutional body, established as per Delhi Special Police Act, and it derives its powers from Delhi Special Police Act. So this is the only thing that you should know. And the next one is CBI cannot enter into, as it is established as per Delhi Special Police Act, it cannot enter into any other states without the permission or consent of the state government. If the state government is not giving that consent, it has to go to the High Court of the state and then it has to get the permission. So that is the reason why High Court has transferred the probe of BRS to CBI. So it is done by High Court so that CBI can easily enter into the states wherever it requires and it can get the answers for poaching case. So this is about CBI, the first news for today. So there are some regional news. I have taken this from the Hyderabad edition. So there is one thing that you have to understand from this. That is, the DRS officials seized drugs worth 50 crores. So this is another news that you should know. Now, whether they have seasoned this much or not, that is not that important as far as we are preparing. There is one term called DRI. This is important. Now, what is DRI? Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. Now, this Directorate of Revenue Intelligence is working under which ministry? This works under Ministry of Finance, and what it will do? It will look at the so-called cases relating to anti-legal financing, such as involving in terrorist funding, such as involving in drugs trafficking, these things. So the question that they might ask is, DRI is related to which ministry? Many of you think that it is Ministry of Commerce, or many of us think that it is something which is related to Ministry of Home Affairs. No, this is something which is exclusively dedicated under Ministry of Finance, particularly to look into the financial frauds that is happening in the country, right? So this is the second news that you have after CBI. Next, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, the President of India, is on her trip to South India. So this is the news that she had. So recently she visited Sri Srilam temple in Andhra Pradesh also. There she has inaugurated something called the Prasad scheme related to Ministry of Tourism, right? So that is what we have in there. There is one thing called NGOs come forward to give a push to Chinnamandadi, right? So the question is, in mains you have about NGOs in GS paper 2. So who are NGOs? NGOs are non-governmental organizations who will be acting as a supplementary body to ensure that the governance is reaching to the so-called grassroots levels. They work in complement to the so-called the government of India, the government of the state. So NGOs are volunteer group of associations who will be forming a group in order to help the poorest of the poor, or in order to ensure that the welfare objectives are reached to the grassroots level. So that is the definition. Just remember that. Apart from that, nothing is important for your prelims here. Moving on, going to the editorial page, what is important from today's Hindu, particularly from prelims as well as from mains component. From prelims component and mains component, you do not have much for today from this editorial. One is power roller coaster that is happening in the Nepal yesterday. In the current affairs, I have said Prime Minister Prachanda, who is popularly called, that is Pushpa Kumar Dahal, is popularly called as Prachanda. He has taken the reins of Prime Ministership of Nepal. So it is in news. This is the reason why it is in news. So this is speaking about something which is happening in the Sri Lanka, in the Nepalese borders. Now that is not important. How it is have impact on India, that is important for us, because in GS paper 2 you have India and its neighborhood. So anytime if there is some political change, particularly if that is someone who is called as Maoists who are coming to power, then definitely it is going to be quite a challenge for India's internal security, but nonetheless our security is formidably assured. So this is something which is happening there. Just remember for your local exams who is the Prime Minister and who is the President of this Nepal. Next is for a spot in the final. This is about the victory that India had in the T20 in the latest test series against Bangladesh, and whether this is speaking about how far formidable our team is compared to the loss that we had in England recently in the World Cup and the losses that we have faced with Bangladesh in the ODI series. It is speaking about how the Ranji Trophy that people are not playing made the players to lose the so-called their acumenship in playing the so-called spinners, and that is the reason why we have lost against Bangladesh in the ODI. So this is speaking about that, not that important. A warship program that must go full stem ahead. So this is speaking about the Navy Day, on the eve of the Navy Day, that is December 4. So there was something called second indigenously aircraft, that is INS Vikrant, was commissioned by the Indian Navy, right? So this is not commissioned, it is proposed. So what is INS Vikrant? That is important. INS Vikrant is indigenous aircraft carrier. That is important for your prelims. INS Vikrant is indigenous aircraft carrier, that is first one. And now we are going to plan for the second one. This is something which is very outstanding progress for country, because so far we used to import defense equipments. Now we are going to generate our own equipments, which makes India a taller country among the list of the top countries. So this is what we have. Nothing much news apart from that. A dismissed review petition and egregious error. Now this is speaking about the Supreme Court judgment on the so-called Bilkis Bano case. Right, we all know this. Those accused in the Bilkis Bano case, or those who were convicted in the Bilkis Bano case, they were given the central government, the Gujarat government has given them pardon. Now that is what in discussion is, on Supreme Court said that Gujarat government has the right to give it. Now the question here is, now what is there? Bilkis Bano. So in Gujarat rights, a gang of people have raped a Muslim woman, and these people were convicted to life imprisonment. On this August 15th, they were released after having their sentence for almost 15 years. Right, they were released. Now the question is whether government of a state has the powers to pardon conviction or not, or remit a sentence or not. That is what before Supreme Court is, and Supreme Court said that yes, government of the state do have these powers. There is another judgment, or there is another case before the Supreme Court relating to this Bilkis Bano, and that is whether the judgment that government of India or government of Gujarat has taken to release these convicts is true, or whether it is correct or not. That is Supreme Court still deciding. This is about jurisdiction, whether High Court of Gujarat do have its right or not. The second petition is about how far it is correct. In the first petition, it said that Gujarat government have the right to decide this. So this is about that thing, not that important. This is a developing context, so just follow that. It will be improved. How to improve historical thinking. This is about how to promote the so-called the history, or how to get involved in the so-called historical context of India, how to develop historical studies. That is why it is in news. The next one is a holistic heritage conservation plan. Again, this is not that important, because India's government is thinking to get new Heritage Act. So this is what it is thinking of, and it is taken away. This is Telangana news, not that important. And most importantly for prelims this year, this is important, a volume and variety of contraband seized in India. Now, what is this news? So again, Directorate Intelligence of Revenue, which is under Ministry of Finance, has seized many things which were traded illegally in the country: gold, dried sea horses, heroin, red sandals. Say red sandal logs are some of the examples of the items that are seized by the Indian Customs and Directorate of Revenue Intelligence in the airports, along the sea routes, and in the border areas nearly every day. So these are the things which we are having. Now, where can you use this? Directorate Revenue of Intelligence, Ministry of Finance, that is prelims. But for mains in internal security, you can use this because there is some issues in internal security, like what are the challenges that India is facing in its international borders. So you can use the same sentences there and you can write it. Apart from that, you do not have nothing much from this also, right? Next, a life of fear in the of attacks for tribal Christians of Bastar, Bastar, which is very prone to the so-called Maoist attack in Chhattisgarh. So this is what in news is. Now the question is, this is about the tribals who are pushed on both sides, one by the security personnel, the other by the Maoists. So a fear of attack, a life fear in attack is always a common thing there. So you can write this sentence in internal security again when you are writing about Maoists. The exact people who are striving in this battle is the middlemen, that is called the tribes. So that is what you have to now write it. Expedite classification of nomadic tribes in quota list, panel tells center. Parliamentary panel on social justice and empowerment notes that the process of very slow. Now this is called denotification of nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes under SC/ST lists. So this is like preparing a list for SC/STs, which will be done by the central government. Now it is delaying it, so it is asking that the central government has to do it at a very faster pace. And some updates from the international relations: Prime Minister Modi has called to Zelensky, the Ukraine president, Ukraine president, saying that he has to attend to the so-called Z20 summit, which is going on in India, right? And he has as our foreign policy studies, he has continued his support for the immediate cessation of the war between Russia and Ukraine. So that is what the updates are. So there is one more news, there is one more development here, that is called National Commission for Protection of Children Rights warns NGOs over depiction of vulnerable children for fundraising. Now, it is a very common thing that many NGOs in India are using the images of vulnerable people or vulnerable children to raise funding. Now, National Commission for Protection of Children's Rights says that this is a wrong thing and it is an illegal thing. So by projecting the fate of others, you are raising the money. So you should stop depicting these vulnerable children in a very harming manner or which harms their dignity. So that is the thing. So you can write this as a subcomponent of your NGOs, that some NGOs are raising the funds by depicting the children in a very poor state of affairs, right? So who has said that? National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. So that is the one which has been in news. And then you have center mandates universal digital capturing of Manrega's attendance, something which is very good governance scheme, that is called universal digital capturing of MGNREGA. So those people who are attending the so-called Manrega works, from now onwards, from January 1st onwards, they have to go for digital attendance. What do you mean by digital attendance? Attendance by biometric attendance is called digital attendance. Now, why this is happening? Because there were many challenges in implementation of this Manrega Act, particularly the contractors who are involved in this case are registering some fake beneficiaries or fake invoices and they are generating the money. So in order to reduce it, Manrega has found where you can use this can be used in the so-called governance and good governance schemes, use of technology in governance. So some 48 killed people as massive winter storm wallops much of US. So we all know that the Northern American countries like Canada and US are facing some blizzards or something called winter storms. Heavy winter storms are causing here. So that is in news. So you have to remember the term that is called blizzards is common thing that is found in US during the winter, right? So where they are flowing from? They are flowing from east of Rocky Mountains and the Appalachians. So just remember that term. and just of that is more than enough. The rest of the things are not that important. Coming to the business page, Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council chief has said that unfunded pension scheme is a tax on future generations. What is this unfunded pension scheme? In India, you have two pension schemes. One is old pension scheme and new pension scheme. Old pension scheme is unfunded pension scheme. Many of the governments are going for unfunded pension scheme or the old pension scheme, which was scrapped in many of the states way back in 2003. Now, what is this unfunded pension scheme? Unfunded pension scheme are those government officials who are working or who are doing their work or employed under government. As long as they are working, government will not cut some pension from their salaries. Rather, after their retirement, the salaries are going to be entirely paid by the central government from its pocket or from its state government's pockets if they are state government employees. This is old pension scheme, which is raising the burden of the state taxes as well as the center taxes, and what economic advisor has said is correct, because it is going to have a burden on the future generations. Right, this is what he is saying, and he is saying that the state should not opt for old pension scheme, rather they should continue with the so-called new pension scheme. So some opposition party ruled states have opted to revert to the old pension scheme, so he is saying that it will have implications on the financial burden. So old pension scheme was discontinued in India from April 1st, 2004, which is a very good thing, but some states, in order to have these electoral compulsions, they are giving this, which is not a good thing. Interest in government securities market rising, says Finance Minister. What are government securities? Government securities are low risk securities which are released by the government or RBI on behalf of the government, and they are released by promising the Consolidated Fund of India. Hence they are low risk, hence these are known as gilt-edged securities. As a result, gilt-edged securities, people have much faith in government securities compared to the so-called external commercial borrowings or some private company bonds. So interest in this is rising, says Finance Minister, which means she is calling people to go and buy these bonds, which will be getting you some positive output. This is interesting. Government securities is also rising because of another concept that is called reducing the so-called inflation in the country. After this, you have not much in today's sports page, and then you have something called what is Delhi High Court verdict on Ruh Afza trademark. Now, Ruh Afza is in news, which has got this trademark. Now, the question is not about Ruh Afza. Ruh Afza is a small summer drink that you will have, right? So that is there. Now, the thing is, what is a trademark? Just like your copyrights, patents, trademark is one thing, which is a distinctive sign or indicator used by a business organization to distinguish its products or services from those of other entities. So in order to distinguish one product from the other thing, you will have a trademark. It serves as a badge of the origin, exclusively identifying a particular business or a source of good or service. Trademark infringement is unauthorized usage of signs that is identical or deceptively similar to a registered trademark. So trademarks are like tools which can be